Friends of the J. Frank Norris Historical Society, it is my hopes from time to time to bring you excerpts from Norris sermons preached, most of them in the late 20s, 1920s, and into the 30s, the 1940s. And this excerpt that I present to you at this time was what J. Frank Norris believed was the era of denominationalism. And it was an issue very paramount in his ministry. He states as follows from this sermon written or preached in July of 1945. Many years ago, he says, there was a red-hot controversy with this church, that is, the First Baptist of Fort Worth, between it and the convention. Here are some of the things that we faced, and I stir up your minds by way of remembrance. You believe, and I believe, that the Bible is indeed the Word of God. We believe every word of it, not somebody's particular translation, but as originally given, the Hebrew of the Old and the Greek of the New Testament. That every word is the divine Word of God. Now, one of the issues a quarter of a century ago between this church, that is the First Baptist, and the convention was that there was an official statement by one of the officials of the convention, and it was adopted, in which they denied the verbal inspiration, that is, the inspiration of the Word of God. Now, it's fair to say that many of the brethren of the convention did not agree with that. They believed, just like we do, that we came out and took our stand against the modernism that cut the heart out of the Word of God. So, that is one of the issues between the First Baptist Church and the convention. I reiterate it again, issues never change, personalities may. Another issue, 25 years or more ago, we threw all the literature, as Norris described it, as a hop, skip, and jump method of quarters. We threw it overboard and we took the whole Bible as our only textbook for every class and department. Now, for that cause, because we did that, there was a charge against this church. And the humorous thing to me is that they turned this church out of the convention because we decided we would study the Bible instead of somebody's literature. And I'm still glad the convention made that move. Now, there are thousands of churches that follow the Bible and take it as the only method by which they study the Word of God. That's one of the issues. Another difference, this church has no part or lot of that with the World Baptist Alliance, which is a modernistic machine. In 1925, the great and now lamented A.C. Dixon offered a resolution in Stockholm, Sweden, and I'll give it to you verbatim. First, that Baptists believe in the inspiration of the Bible. Second, that Baptists believe in the virgin birth of Christ. Third, that Baptists believe in the deity of Christ. Third, that Baptists believe in the atonement of Christ. And you would have thought that any Baptist body on earth would have adopted that. But they turned it down 2-1, 1925. And that's why, my friends, that this church has no part or lot, or ever will have, I trust, with that modernistic World Baptist Alliance. I remind you again, this was a sermon in 1945. I also want to remind you that on one of my other websites, I have an account of what the nice things the Baptists said about Adolf Hitler in 1935. And friends, if you'll look at my website and search it out, you'll see some astonishing statements made concerning the person of Adolf Hitler, which, if looked at in hindsight, might be attributed to the naivete on the part of Baptist leaders. Now they know much different. But you see, times change, and sometimes attitude change. And thankfully, the Southern Baptist churches have come to accept much of what J. Frank Norris preached about he's been dead since 1925, but these were the core of his messages. He stood against something, and he stood for something. And finally, another difference. And he said I could mention several, but here's one. All the denominational machines are predicated on post-millennial era. If you study the history, and very soon I will give you the definition between post-millennialism and premillennialism. Post-millennialism, just in brief summation, believes that the world is going to get better and better by education, by peace conferences, by scientific research, and by denominational machines. But we believe that the only hope of this world to bring peace is the coming of the Prince of Peace himself. We believe that Christ alone will come and establish his kingdom. Now, all these denominational machines believe that they're going to bring in the kingdom. We disagree with that. And friends, to add to that note, I personally, Roy, agree with that early belief that J. Frank Norris held to. I still believe in the premillennial coming of Christ. And so I emphasize again, that's one of the differences between the First Baptist Church and the Southern Baptist Convention years ago. These are historical facts. It's my desire to elaborate on these further in future videos. So stay tuned. May God bless each one, and may God bless America. Thank you, and goodbye.